I mean, Laurel with the surprise of the thing, and Hardy with the indignity of it. I mean, the reaction to the thing was good. And the audience knew that they were so closely knit together that they were going to stick together regardless of what happened.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Oliver Hardy speaking. I'm taking this opportunity of thanking you and the countless friends in the British Isles for the wonderfully wholehearted reception you have given me on my first visit to your beautiful country.
Ollie, stop wiggling your tie.
What do you mean, stop wiggling my tie?
Well, every time you get fancy, you start wiggling your tie, and it looks silly.
If you interrupt me again, I'll wiggle you.
They had been working in a little bit of a cocoon at the Hal Roach Studios. They certainly were aware that they were popular because, after all, they kept being prevailed upon to make more films, so they knew somebody liked them. But they weren't aware of the incredible hold they had on the affections of the public. And they came face to face with that for the first time in the summer of 1932 when they visited England. They had some very frightening experiences with the crowds. At one point, their car was besieged by mobs, and the mob tore off a door of their car. Babe was almost trampled by one of the crowds. So there were some very, very frightening moments because of the adulation of all these people. And no one was more surprised by all of this than Laurel and Hardy.
Back in Hollywood, their careers were destined to change.
The two-reelers were very successful, but Laurel and Hardy had to make feature films out of necessity. Hal Roach did not want to make feature films. The Hal Roach Studios specialized in short comedy. Hal Roach would have been very happy to continue making two-reel, one-reel short comedies.
They went into feature production because the double feature in the United States made it impossible for the theaters to use half-hour comedy. And all they could use was features. And where I made the mistake of my life, I should have made about 40-minute comedies, and I could have sold them as a second feature. But I wasn't smart enough to do that. So I went into making feature pictures with them.
The result of that was that there were some more constraints on their ability to improvise. After all, the feature films were much more expensive than the shorts. The shorts generally cost about $15,000 to $20,000 to make. The feature films could run as high as $600,000. And when you were making only 1 or 2 feature films a year, as opposed to 8 short subjects a year, you had to be a little more concerned about the quality of the film because it was going to be a lot longer before you had another one in the theaters. So since there was more money being spent, Roach had to watch over the features a little more carefully.
It lacked very much because Hal Roach and I, we differed a great deal on story ideas and gags and what have you. And we didn't get along too well on that picture. We disagreed very much.
It wasn't a question of liking him or not. Like, what the hell was he going to do if he didn't? We couldn't make two-reelers because we couldn't sell them. So, I mean, it wasn't, I didn't want to make features. Nobody wanted to make those kind of features. But we either had to make features or do nothing.
in the feature films, rather than having one story, as you would have with the short subjects, you have a musical number, a bit with the romantic leads, and then Laurel and Hardy doing a routine for 5 minutes, and then the cycle repeats itself. And as a result, I think that audiences today are a little bit less satisfied with the feature films than they are with the short subjects, because the short subjects are pure Laurel and Hardy, and in many of the feature films, it tends to be a little bit diluted by the addition of the other elements.
Now, when I fill this with wine, I'll hand it to you. Then you pour it in there.
Do you mean to tell me that 500,000 francs is concealed in that little bit of silken lace?
Uh-huh.
I'm sure that Stan knew, as Roach did, you just couldn't sustain pure Laurel and Hardy comedy for an hour and a half. The material wasn't there. I mean, unless you were Chaplin and you had the luxury of working for 2 or 3 years to make a picture.
Certainly, Roach was a good judge of story material in thinking that something like The Bohemian Girl or Fra Diavolo would be a wonderful vehicle for Laurel and Hardy. Those are 2 excellent films, and even though they have storylines that involve other people and they have lots of musical numbers, they hold up. They are wonderful films.
Let me look at you. You're spiffed.
Where the whole thing fell apart was when I bought this musical in New York, and I got on the train to write the story of the musical. And when I got into the studio, I was so pleased with everything of buying it and having the script. I called all the writers in, and Stan and Babe were not working, and they weren't at the studio. So, I mean, the writers all knew that what was the next picture going to be, but they also knew that Stan Laurel couldn't have had any part in it. So he was so mad that he said he couldn't do it because they couldn't wear the derbies for no reason at all. And finally got to the point where I had bought it. I said, all right, you make it. And I had nothing to do with it at all, and he made a lousy picture.
I think that was the first time that I felt my father had really attained